see. How was everyone's New Year? Good, hopefully, and holiday season? Yule? Winter equinox? Solstice? It's not a rhetorical question. I'm curious about your lives, and I care about you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, for me, what's good?
Very
I
good.
started the Adapt initiative for holidays. That's what I did.
Great.
And I stay home
How is
because
it?
there's lockdown here in Europe. No, it's going well.
What's happening?
I'm like halfway. Lockdown,
Oh, yeah.
so you can't do anything and you can barely do anything. So I'm at home most of the time. And I'm not from here, so my family is far away. So I decided to take some time for myself, start with the course. It was good.
Great. It's a good time lockdown's a good time to do magic and focus on yourself. I'm in the same position, so I'm glad that Adapt is, you're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for me. I'm still halfway. I still have to do lots of stuff. And I haven't even did my mandala for meditation, but I will do it. I will do it soon.
Excellent. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Yeah, we're not on lockdown here, but I never leave the house anyways. And everyone I know has gotten COVID, so I don't really want to leave the house. So, it's about the same. All right, let's get started. Big news, obviously, you've probably seen on Instagram and the email list, we have launched, Ultraculture is entering Web3. So some of you may have been in the virtual reality sessions that we've had. We're going to be doing more of those. Virtual reality will be more worked into just about everything. So keep an eye out for that. Also, we are entering the NFT fray and cryptocurrency. So if you haven't seen I have created an NFT gallery that is an online occult art gallery for students because so many of you are artists, whether that's visual or music or whatever it happens to be. If you have some occult art that you would like to show in the gallery to the public and other students and maybe make a few bucks, you never know, let us know. You can email at raphael@ultraculture.org. With art if you'd like to submit it. We've already sold like 3 things. There was a John D. collage, a sigil that one of the students created, and a third one that I'm forgetting. But one way or the other, the occult is an artistic discipline. I've always wanted to have an occult art gallery. Now I can do it online. So that's very exciting. So check it out at nft.magic.me. All right. With that said, let's get into it.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
I spent the last 3 days in a fever dream, sick with the thing, I suppose.
Uh-oh.
And
Did you get the Rona?
what's odd is the PCR test that I went to take has not come back yet, even though it said that it should. I assume I have had whatever. My voice is still not totally there, but I'm nearly 100% better.
I hope it's okay.
I feel, it felt like a strange gift. Because I got to a lot of downtime. I spent a lot of it taking the Magic and Mysticism of Buddhism course, which was great. I really loved the video collage.
Thank you.
That was great. Yeah,
It's an experiment, but yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Oh, I was so into it. Yeah, the Bardo states and stuff I was all about that. And then reading Hodorowski's Psychomagic books and also Antro Ollie's books. That was kind of like my whole fever dream thing.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. I love that stuff. Okay, so what am I trying to ask here? Oh, okay. I was looking into a lot of magical records from 2 years ago. And there's a lot of stuff in there about true will this, my true will this, it is my true will to this. And a lot of it was, I found that I was using that phrase to kind of maybe psychologically bypass actual investigation into things. And when I came out of what I'm calling this fever dream, I kind of it was apparent that what I was referring to in my as my true will 2 years ago, I've already done, and I feel like there's a whole new frontier now, and a lot of it is like deep, deep concern. Oh, for just living things in general on the planet, and like misinformation and fear-based kind of like oh, just I don't know, like technology being a double-edged sword, and just like addressing this and how to come at this. My whole vocation for the last 20 years has been like performing songwriter and kind of oddball artist type, but it's always been in the physical world. Performing is really like where I'm most comfortable. I have a real like push and pull resistance towards things like Zoom meetings and stuff like that. The technological kind of aspect of it is really difficult for me, and balance, right? How to utilize fears and anxieties of a thing in order to like cut through. Advice?
Well, it sounds like if you have already accomplished what you thought was your true will, that's great. Well done. That's a big deal, right? And so the next question to ask yourself is, what's the next deeper layer of that? Because presumably what you conceptualize as your true will was a signpost in a direction, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the next step is actually like being able to ground in the material world, and like, I mean, money was never important to me. Like I say that, but I think I do have a deep fear of poverty, but I've always kind of like I've managed, right? Like economic success and American standards has never been that important to me. But survival, like it's always been kind of my conception that I would live the way that I live until one day I would just maybe drop down dead.
Well, money is very important to artists for the reason that it's not for the money; it's for the freedom to pursue your art.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and not be interrupted from what you have to do, right?
Yes. So this is kind of where I'm at, but I think the conversation you were having earlier between I forget their name, but you know, uh, the conversation between true will and Taoism, just kind of flowing through and just like letting things be, like that feels so much more like in alignment with how I live my life. And it's always, I've always had what I've needed. I've always had what I've needed to keep the game going, right? To keep doing the thing. Um, and I feel like as getting into magic and taking your courses, which I love, are excellent. I feel like it's implanted in me a real get your shit together and get better, buddy, type of like mentality, and um, which has been really good. It's been good, and it's been discipline and learning a lot about my shortcomings and where I can do better. But like kind of just like bringing those two worlds together, where it's like just like yeah, being in the river of the Tao, and not stressing too much about working too hard to do the thing where it's unhealthy, but it's still it's still in alignment with just the natural, breath of reality.
Do you feel that you're blocked somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is on the other side of the block?
On the other side of the block.
Yeah, if you didn't have the block, what would be different?
Um, like a gentle, loving authority and like power, I think, in like the true sense, not power over others, but power inside. Yes. I think that's on the other side of the block. It's the blockage is giving aspects of myself away to others that I don't think it's like I don't really feel understood sometimes by some of the people that I love, and I feel like I work very hard for them, and I do not feel like it is reciprocated, and it's very hard to
Yeah, it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
This is tough, right? Because it's like, in order to say, I hate to be this reductive. In order to say yes, sometimes you have to say no, right? It's like there's a certain mentality that comes with wanting to flow with the universe where you just accept everything. But in practice, that doesn't always work that well. And so what tends to actually work better is as going through that, but understanding who you are. It's self-knowledge, understanding what your natural flow state is, and understanding that when that's violated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because you can't just flow with everything,
Right.
So again, it's not as simple as just the mystic thing of just throwing yourself into the universe. You have to positively construct will, but that's done over a process of many years of going through life experience and measuring yourself by your experience and learning for yourself what works and what feels good and what doesn't. Or not necessarily what feels good, but what feels right.
Yes. Thank you for mirroring that back to me.
You're welcome. So, yeah.
Oh, well, one thing that like really resonated with me when I was sick. This is from Hodorowski's Psychomagic book. It says, beneath every illness is the forbiddance of something we desire to do, or an order to do something we do not desire. All recovery requires disobedience to this prohibition or order, and in order to disobey, it is necessary to lose the infantile fear of not being loved or the fear of abandonment. That resonated a lot with me. Just that, that resonated a lot with me.
What was the first part? So an illness is a repressed desire, something like that?
Yeah, beneath every illness is the forbiddance.
So what is COVID?
Right.
That's not a leading question. I'm just just an interesting hopping off point for conversation. If forbiddance of if we're forbidding ourselves something culturally, what is COVID?
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of things, I think it's like kind of synonymous with just illness at this point too. What I think COVID is, shit, I don't know. Is it a bioweapon?
Maybe.
That's the thing, right? Maybe it is. Like, I mean, and this is where this concern of mine really comes from. It's, it seems a lot more kind of like, God, this is going to sound strange, but it seems a lot more like spiritually aware, and like the magical kind of like, it just in my sphere, like when people like test positive or test negative, like the whole kind of like the whole thing seems really in alignment with different elements of anxieties and different elements of attention paid to it. And it seems like a psycho-spiritual illness, that touches on the energetic body as well as the physical body, as well as like all the spheres of the body.
Interesting.
Like, I'm not a doctor or anything like this, obviously.
Yeah, me neither.
But
I'm just a crazy magic guy on the internet. But yeah, no, it is interesting, right? I mean, but all illness is to some extent a bit like that, right?
Yes, and so this is where I'm kind of coming at now. This is like this, well, just people acting so mechanical and so machine like and so in alignment with like the standard narrative now is extremely alarming to me, you know. And I've tried to
Yeah.
use social media and I've tried to use the internet and stuff to be a little bit anomalous and like and bizarre, but it's just like it's not really working in the, you know, it's not built for that to get a lot of traction, you know?
Yeah, this isn't a very. I've as anyone who's followed me for longer than a few months probably knows, I go through my periods of provoking people. This is not a very good time for it, I don't think. It's just not.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's like the opposite though, if it's kind of like I love you, you know,
Oh, I see.
like you could be. It's not so much of a provocation as it is like look, like it's fucking beautiful still. Like here we are. Like take a breath. Like
So
love you.
do people get angry if you point that out to them?
No,
Oh, that's
I mean
good.
it's worked quite in my general community. It's been quite effective, you know. But like I want to. I don't know. I guess I just want to extend. I want to extend my work beyond my general community, and I just I keep I keep hitting a little like, you know, and who knows? Maybe I don't need to. I mean, I have what I need, like I said, you know.
Yeah, it's a tough time. I mean, basically, if you're an artist or a magical person or anything in that continuum, I mean, a big part of what you do is you're trying to give back to people. You're trying to contribute to people by making them aware of things that they weren't thinking of, or of mirroring them, or reminding them about what's actually important in life. Is often what artists do, right? But now it's people are so out of their minds right now, and so I recommend. I think that probably self-preservation is a good strategy for the time being. It won't always be like this, but right now people are so jacked up to the gills on whatever it is they're freaked out about that it's very hard to communicate anything. I do think it's interesting. I think, and I wouldn't be hard on yourself. Anybody listening to this, I wouldn't be hard on yourself for that. I think as artists definitely want to. Anyone who has a kind of save the world bent wants to have the whole world sing as one, you know. But it's just sometimes there's good times for it, and other times there aren't. And I think that just hanging on for now is probably good. I think there was something about COVID which I thought was very interesting, which is that the symptomology of it, or rather, not the symptomology, the proposed cure for it, or that's not even that's the wrong word. Like the whole thing about social distancing, right? Like the whole proposed method of dealing with it is what was making people sick in the first place, right? Because prior to COVID, everyone was becoming very sick because they were so distanced from each other and isolated already, and just on their phones and the internet, and like walling themselves off more and more and more into their kind of mental gated communities, you know. And like many people on the call may know that one of my favorite video game series of all time is Metal Gear Solid. And in the second Metal Gear Solid, there's this whole sequence. It's worth looking up on YouTube, which it came out in 2000, and it was prophetic about, talking about people in the future are going to wall off into their own, essentially social media communities, and live their own individual truths and just leak out into the world around them little hints about what might be true. But that's all that they'll ever do. So people were already becoming sick because they were isolating from each other and socially distancing on every level. And so I thought it was interesting that then it's like COVID almost is like the inflammation or the symptomology of that. And again, I'm not a doctor, so don't take this as me saying when COVID is, please, for the love of God. But I thought it was interesting that what was proposed as, the social distancing, the isolating, and the masking, right, which is what people were doing already anyways, wearing masks online.
Exactly.
Is going further into the thing that was making people, regardless, outside of the biological reality of COVID, okay? The proposed, basically what was making people spiritually sick is what was proposed as the appropriate response to the physical symptomology, the physical illness.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was interesting, is all I'm saying, and disturbing.
Yeah, likewise. Like the fragment, I mean, the fractal nature of reality and the way everything mirrors everything else it's extremely interesting. Yeah, this summer when things were starting to kind of open up a little bit again, I did I live in New Orleans, and New Orleans in the summertime is just atrocious. The heat. So I set up a DIY tour of just kind of like art galleries and backyards. I called it the Jump Off a Cliff and Build Your Wings on the Way Down tour, because I didn't really know if it was all going to go through. And the whole thing was to kind of show like we need gatherings, like we need to be in the vicinity of others. Like it doesn't have to look like the way that it did, even 5 or 10 years ago, where it's like a rock club or a fucking stadium, for Christ's sakes. Like I do not.
Yeah.
That has no appeal to me. But outside, or like I played a cave on the beach in San Francisco. It was magnificent. And that whole thing was like a magical act of just kind of like healing. Like we could still do all of the things that we need to do, just like rethink them, and it has had this whole kind of like, punk rock and like DIY kind of like perspective. And that was amazing. And the whole thing culminated with, I did a silent meditation on my 39th birthday in northern New Mexico. It was really, really good. That felt like a real good like combat to just like the energy of the COVID times, I would say, and like I want to continue to kind of just like defy that fear somehow,
That's great.
What I do.
That's great. Yeah, that's really important. I think that, yeah, I mean, I just agree. I don't think I have anything to add to that. It's a beautiful thing, though.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're just wrapping and there's questions, but.
Yeah, let me. I still have a couple people to get to, but yeah, I think that in general, the whole question of moving through the COVID period, and because this is, one way or another. I mean, let's set aside the disease for a second. It's like this is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. Whether, it's possible that there may just continue to be variants and waves of lockdowns forever. It's possible. It's very unpleasant to think about, right? But it's possible. But even that aside, the psychological fallout from this will be with us for a long time. Let alone kids, who went through this and are just, like I see kids walking around just completely. They look broken, it's with their masks on, staring at Minecraft or Roblox on their iPad or whatever like that. It's very, very depressing. So I think as artists and magical people or thinkers or just people who are conscious, figuring out how to move through this is going to be really important, and it's dangerous and tricky. So it's hard work, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, I appreciate you, having a forum in which these things can happen.
Yeah, even Zoom, right? I mean, everyone's probably sick of Zoom by now, but even this, I feel is like, for me, it's really good because I just I'm by myself all day long, locked down. So, all right, good to talk to you. Hang in there, and go to Adam. Hello.
Hey, Jason.
What's up? How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I think we've talked a little bit during the summit.
Yeah.
I think that was previous year. It was really fun. Let me just say, first of all, I'm somehow very much intimidated by you. I don't know why it is, but there is this, ever since I started doing the Adapt initiative, I tried to hop on these calls a few times. And somehow, I always got this vibe of it's time to go. I have no questions to ask. And perhaps why this is because I'm more of a lone wolf in terms of practice, right? I really try to get to the bottom of the technique. Why does it work? And really drill down into it. So that led me into these states of being, which really led me to dissociate with reality. You're kind of feeling as if you're walking as a third player character in this world, right? And then you kind of go back into your normal life, doing your work, and then you all of a sudden you're like back into this like dimensionality vision of seeing time next to each other and in depth. Anyway, instead of like sounding the alarm or doing anything crazy, I just like eased into it, and that led me into further and further insights. So in the last, I think I've been doing magic now for 3 years now.
Cool.
And it's like my practice is very rigorous, and I've come to like big blinds, I think, in the occult literature. And like I know that you are a profound, like anytime I listen to your podcast, for example, it's like that, like this person can articulate and sift through the matrix of like vulgarism so well. So that's why I want to ask this question to you. Like, so I have there is this, it seems like the order of the elements is very important, right? The order of the elements. And like there are many orders. In fact, like when you look at the zodiac signs, there are 12 different orders because the he is twice repeated. But when you look at the basics, right? Yod, He, Vav, He, and the basic attribution of the 4 elements, when you look in book 4 of Aleister Crowley, we get this description which points towards Yud being fire, He being water, and then it's like air and earth. Right. Yeah. So we start with fire, we go to water, and then it becomes suddenly air, like expansion of consciousness, and then it is crystallization. But when I always like, I never understood that, and certainly not when you are like analyzing the LBOP, where you start with air because the sun comes up, like it gives possibilities. It starts right. Then there is fire at midday, sun is up, you don't see it, but you assume it, and then sun comes down, so there's a cool down aspect. People are chill, they recover from their daily activities, and in the evening they rest, right? So it makes sense in the LBRP sense. But when we cast Yohevahe, when we start the ritual with Yohevahe, you kind of declaring the whole ritual in that sense. So in my, like when I read Ophel, for example, he says it's air, fire, water, earth, which is kind of like the Vedanta interpretation, right? You start with dots in space, which are like dots, just dots, and dots that's dots, that's possibilities. That would be air. Dots friction with themselves, right? They bounce and they cause friction, meaning they create these little triangles, right? So it's like fire, and because there is this energy insertion, there is this expansion of energy, there must be a cool down. So that's the third element, water. And then
this is Ophel you're talking about? This is what he says?
Yes, that's exactly what Ophel says. And it's just so weird that in the whole occult community, people are like, it seems like very much obsessed with sex, or at least fire energy, right? It's like fire first. And it's like so Crowley-esque, where it seems like the correct balanced like maybe the balanced interpretation of the 4 elements should start with air at Yod He Vav. And that's kind of my first question. Like, how do you like do you have your own interpretation of the 4 elemental attributes of the Yod He Vav, of the, and what do you think about the switching of the water, fire, water element? I see my internet connection is not stable, but I hope you.
Oh no, it's okay. There's a little bit of lag, but nothing too bad. Okay. So, well, there's a lot of different interpretations. I mean, so one thing I do want to point out though is that particularly when you talk about the Eastern sources, you don't forget Akasha.
Yes.
Right. So because a lot of times when you have this, plenipotentiary kind of field that phenomena emerge from, usually this is attributed to some type of Akasha element, and then with the Crowley's interpretation of the Tetragrammaton is as a process of manifestation, which is, I think, very interesting. And the reason that Yod is associated with fire is because fire is the igniting impulse. And which for Crowley obviously is associated with will, right? The act of will, and then it follows on from there. I stick with that because it simply just seems to it works across all levels. In terms of, I think I haven't read the Ophil's an interesting character. I haven't read the his writing on that, but I'll say this. I mean, it's like the other place to look at, maybe a better even place to look at for information on the ordering of the elements is Barden, his Initiation into Hermetics, which I presume you've read. He goes into this at length and in great detail, and that might be something to look at as well.
Yeah, so I did, and maybe I'm like I just say it like an arrogant student, of the occult, but I don't like Barden's description of the elements. Like, I prefer the description of Ophil, because he talks about a physical process which goes about coming from light and a lot of possibilities to like very heavy and little movement, which is kind of what we see, right? We're kind of like people on Earth, which is immovable, inert, and we have all these options in our minds, and then we choose one because we filter one, like choice, right? Like it's also your teaching, I think, like decision, like directing all the energy into one point and then sitting through time with this. So then we have this water element of being affected throughout the time of application of fire, at least. So the reason why for me, like that's my thing, right? Like, it shouldn't be any other people problems on this call, I suppose, but it's kind of my problem, because I really am a systematic thinker, I think. Like, I really love like matrices and shit, like mathematics, like computer science, thinking in systems, like everything needs to make sense. Otherwise it's like,
sure,
fuck this shit. So what I notice is that if you arrange the 4 elements in a 4x4 matrix, you could distill the whole Kabbalah into it, right? So all of a sudden the Kabbalistic, like I say, spheres, all of a sudden become a compound element, right? So it becomes 2 elements working together and forming this, how in my experience at least, it's like depending on where you are on the sphere, but say in the middle, right? So it's like the mental plane, like Ruah. I feel it's like more of a gear shift, right? So there is like a mental gear shift of looking at things in a different way. And like, because of this like 4x4 matrix, like I really like, just, I don't know if you can see it, just to give like a visual, right? I'm like made like a lot of visuals like this, and I try to explain in the blog post, but I don't want to sound crazy. But essentially what you would have is this 4x4 matrix, and all of a sudden you can interpret the Kabbalah with less dogma and more fundamental aspects, because you're starting with 4, and the 4 are just like the 4 divisions of a wave, like of a cycle, which we as humans experience on Earth. So that's why I keep like twisting on it, because if you look further, look, you wanted to say something?
Oh no, keep going.
So because like the next step would be that once you have the 4x4 matrix, you do one, like you cut up every part of it one time more, and then you have the 64 pieces, which would correspond perfectly to I Ching.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, it sounds like a more Eastern, it sounds like a much more Eastern take on it in general.
Yeah, but I suppose like that's why my HDA, or at least my true will, is leading me currently, right? So I am kind of synthesizing the like the purest Eastern interpretation. So I suppose the I Ching, and like I suppose I Ching without dogma, and then the Western like dynamite, and trying to like clump them together. And from my understanding, at least, I feel that there is something huge hidden in these simple patterns. For example, I like, just to acknowledge how deeply I'm into this, is basically like not to show off, but I just want to acknowledge this. I quit my full job as a data scientist, and I joined university, right, to get a graduate degree in physics.
Wow.
To get the notation and mathematics right, before I will like challenge a narrative because like currently we are literally like looking at time in a one fashion, like there's like one time or something, like there is like one perspective, like things like just differentiate over time, whereas from the perspective of I suppose a magician, or at least like somebody that practices it, it's very obvious that there are like it's seen as if energy can be distributed across like compartments of space, but like it's so hard to describe it even. So the only thing that I have is my experience, and I have a lot of like pop science books and like books on I suppose like physics, but like to really get deeply down to it and to get like writing papers, I suppose I really like just want to get the degree and like get the credentials and shit, like and get it that way. So yeah, I don't know that helps to to put that into perspective.
That's great. That's very dedicated. All I was going to say, I mean, when I was trying to hop in earlier, I was just going to make sure you're writing about it. I was asking if you've written it down, because it just sounds like all I can say to you is just to encourage you to keep going, because it sounds awesome. You are working a groove here. So just make sure that you write it down and present it when it's ready.
Yes. So I'm doing that in my own way, right? So I have these. So a false, I suppose, like the spellbooks, the magical records. I have like plenty of those. I also created my own little application to take notes in this way. For example, like I don't know if you know Zito Custom. Might interest you. Like
what is
Zito Custom. Zito Custom. So it's like a German word for like index cards.
Okay.
Index card box or something. Like, but you should like really like write it down in
what's
in
the
German.
second? It's Zadol. What's the second part of it?
Custom. So custom would be like small little boxes, I suppose.
Zito Custom.
So if you would like.
Oh yeah, okay. I see it.
If you look that shit up on YouTube, you get these knowledge management systems where people can interconnect ideas and notes and start like doing non-fictional writing.
Oh, this is cool.
So it's a like really an information management system, and it's pretty primitive, but it's currently being used in academia and for non-fiction writers to like really like grab like wide topics and pull them down
cool.
into blog pieces.
I'm gonna check this out for sure. So you said you created an app for doing this?
Yes. So I'm creating an application. It's called it's Spellbook, and what it tries to do is it tries to engineer attention inside. So what Facebook does is it takes attention, right? It takes your attention and it like shifts it to another person, and then like it takes another person's attention, and it's like it's a distributor of attention to other people. So my idea was take the same algorithms, right? Like attention on posts, like time to comment, relevance, whatever, and take those algorithms and apply them to your own notes and ideas and dreams and emotions and shit you're going through to then generate this feed, which is an organic feed, which the AI, quote unquote, thinks you will more enjoy because it will like enable deeper self-exploration, right? So it's like
it basically shows you stuff from your own thoughts.
Yes,
that's very cool.
Yes, and so it's called Spellbook. Like I think I can link it. And currently, like almost all my ideas are currently stored in there. Although, I'm currently like still working on a good sync between my laptop and my phone on it, because like I try to because it's very personal shit, right? So what the app does is like literally like it takes Facebook algorithms and it makes a social media feed for yourself.
This is cool.
And two, it engineers your attention back inside, right? So the idea is to like shift your attention back inside.
Wow, this is cool. Wow, you've really built this out. So are you selling this, or like you have a user base?
So the user base is very niche, right? So it's like I think 80 people.
That's great though.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But
what did you build this on, by the way? What did you do, like React Native, or did you just build it on iOS or something?
It's a React Native, yeah. So it's Android and iOS. It's using the SDK Expo, if you know that. Expo is like it's the best thing.
Oh, Xcode?
Expo.
Oh, Xcode. No, I don't.
I think you will enjoy it, or whatever your team, or maybe whoever will come in contact with like ever developing anything for
That's
iOS and
That's
Android.
me.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect address. So there was this. I just linked you the website. So it's a chain where you can just like very easily using the same code base deploy on Android and test it, by the way, on Android, iOS, and web.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a multiple deployment using a single code base. It's perfect. And like it's like the best.
What do you use this with React, or what do you? Is this a framework, or it's a testing? What is this?
So Expo is more like so just like React Native would be like run app, right? So I don't know, Node.js run app. So
Yeah.
Expo would be something like that with a few more layers so that you can run this everywhere.
Wow.
Yes. So it's
Platform
like React
for
Native
universal
with a
React
few more
applications.
layers. I think so, yeah. So I use Expo, for example, for the Spellbook app.
Cool. So that was pretty easy to go cross-platform.
To go cross-platform was pretty easy, yeah, sure. But
Wow.
To code the thing itself. So, for example, I'm currently building a desktop application, right? To go to desktop took me, I think, 1 evening.
Wow.
But to sync data, that's the problem.
Oh.
To sync data, there we have a small little hiccup. I have a small little hiccup because I want to really like keep my data off Amazon, away from the Jeffs.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, right? I mean, this is the problem that I have two minds about this. I will go into like total data, splitting off from everything, and then it's just like you can't do anything, and then I just end up doing everything with Google. You know what I mean? So
yes,
I go in both directions. Yeah, what are you using for your database?
So currently I'm learning this. I think you will like this too. It's gun.eco. It's a peer-to-peer distributed database which just uses small little relay servers to allow browsers to connect to each other. So it's completely off limits. There is no centralization. It's like completely end-to-end encrypted. And it's very basic and it scales as hell. So I don't know if you know Hackernoon.
Yeah.
But so Hackernoon is pretty much like hosted on this peer-to-peer network.
Okay. So what happens if a node goes down?
It's so usually data is being replicated across peers which need it. So in a scenario of blog posts, I guess multiple people are having the blog posts. So then like the blogs are being fetched from the peers.
So it's basically like your host. It's like you have a torrent database.
Yes, it's torrent, but only browser to browser. It's very lightweight.
Interesting. Exactly. Much more lightweight than blockchain.
Yeah, there is no transaction, nothing.
Yeah.
No,
cool.
No get limits.
I will check these out. I love this stuff. Yeah. I'm just getting into this side of things right now, and I find it's super interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, it's like presumably you could use some type of Amazon or Google Cloud thing to sync data across all your platforms. But if you don't want to do that, I don't know.
Yeah, I could. But for example, would you do it? Like, it really depends on what type of data it is, right? So for example, in Spellbook, I'm really noting down like my worst moments, right? My worst moments. I have this small little space. It's watered. And after like, I suppose like 1.5 months, like of a few dreams, few moon cycles, when I reread that, there is this huge secret being revealed inside that suffering, right? Like there is this huge perspective being revealed, which previously I would note it down in my very like heavy, hard to browse through magical record, right? Or like some type of node type system which is hard to iterate through. So what I try to do is give people the ability to go back and revisit themselves previously in new orders, right?
That's super cool.
And that's kind of what I try to do. Like, I don't know. Yes, thank you for listening to me. I'm just gonna go further doing my own.
Yeah, no, just keep at it. I mean, it sounds very interesting. I think that particularly integrating your data science perspective with things. I mean, that's the most fascinating thing to me. Let's face it. I mean, like, there's been very little innovative work in the occult for a long time, and the innovative work that was done was synthesis, i.e., Mather's The Golden Dawn, right, or Crowley synthesizing things from Eastern techniques. But in terms of like new fundamental takes on things or original research, not so much. You know, I mean,
which is it's really hard to talk about and write about and share with people, because most people are in these small little dogmatic bubbles.
Yeah.
And sorry to say it, but like it's really like so apparent, and it's obvious, right? Like it's so hard to be okay with chaos, because like the moment that you like go away from the path, it's like there's monsters everywhere, and especially when it comes down to what's true. Completely agree with you.
Yeah, well, I just have to encourage you then. I mean, and it sounds like you're taking it so seriously. Yeah, I mean, it's it is unfortunate in a way that in the occult that people very much do not assess first principles ever. They take things as on a hand-me-down basis, and often those things that they're getting, you trace it back like 3-4 layers of copy. It's like, well, Eliphaz Levi made it up. You know, or something like that. And then unfortunately what happens is because the occult is not, you know, the occult has been left to wither on the branch of knowledge, right? It's like you don't get support for it at universities for obvious reasons and things like this. So essentially people just have this kind of like, as I pointed out before, people kind of have ended up with just like a grab bag of subcultural signifiers, and they don't look at it. I always looked at it as, this is actually something that can be figured out and tested. But I realized going through so many things that is not the perspective that most people were looking at it. They were looking at it as, these are our gang signs for our gang. You know what I mean? It's like you go to the OTO or the Chaos Magicians or whatever. It's like, oh, these are our gang signs that show that we're this group. It's like, well, that is useless. I'm sorry. It's like, good for you, but actually these things are supposed to be functional. And the biggest thing that I ever did to piss people off was actually get stuff to work. That's a sure way to lose friends in the occult.
Yeah.
Like that pisses people off more than everything, because it ruins the whole game. It's like, no, you're not actually supposed to get it to work, because if you actually get it to work, then that shows that they can't get it to work, and that their whole identity is bullshit.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I would say, isn't that good? From a scientific perspective, that's what you want. You want to be shown that you want your prepositions to be falsified so that you can get closer to the truth.
Yes.
But that's not what people want. They want to build their little dunghills where they're the king of the castle.
It's true. Like, so, I think, like, if you truly believe your advice to, like, listen for, I think, 1 year to Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and all these atheists, and to really, like, bang smack down your dogmatic magic beliefs and then, like, rebuild.
Oh, yeah. My favorite is Stephen Novella. He did a great courses series on critical thinking. It's brutal. No, I highly recommend that to everyone. Take just even from like a Robert Anton Wilson perspective, just take a purely materialist scientific viewpoint on everything, and just cut through, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, if nothing survives that, if your whole identity does not survive that, good. You know, it's like, honestly, like, this is what I would say to people, like, nothing could be more liberatory for us than to just have the entire field of the occult 100% falsified.
Oh, yeah.
Thank fuck. Now we can all go get real jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so wouldn't that be great? Like, so, but that's never going to happen, because the nature of the universe is this kind of infinite mystery in a way. And there's only so far you can go with, you know, to take it back to your point of the elements, you know, I always look at, you know, science, physics, mathematics, magic. These are all branches of one thing. It's the human desire to know shit. And the material science, if we're going to get into particle physics and all of this and understanding the universe, is like, yeah, I mean, that you're understanding the laws of how the manifest universe works, but they won't tell you anything about
creativity.
Right. You know, it's like, I mean, and I think even most psychologists will tell you, it's like, if you compare psychology to the hard sciences, right? If you compare psychology is pseudoscience. Okay, it really is. It's like the most that we've gotten out of psychology is psychotropic drugs and antidepressants. But in terms of like Freudian analysis and things like this, it's like it might as well be reading tea leaves. And it doesn't work. And you even look at Freud talking about, doing therapy with patients for 30 years and then they're still suicidal at the end of it. It's like, what is the point of this? And so, one of my favorite things that anyone has ever said in magic, JFC Fuller, a Crowley student, said in the Equinox that, why should we study magic, right? Because it's silly. It's culturally discarded, all this. But he says, like, look, from alchemy, we got chemistry. From astrology, we got astronomy, and so on and so forth. It's like, what are we going to get when we study essentially the pure occult?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and we should get something real. And I think particularly taking a computer science approach to it is the best way, way to do that.
It seems as if, I agree. It seems as if university is like, for example, I really like see it when doing calculus, right? Like calculus at uni. I never did like calculus at a university level. It was like fucking brain fuck, right? Like really, like it destroys your little child trying to play with numbers.
Oh no!
No, this is the way, right? It feels very bad for the creative soul, but it really feels as if they really want to push you in a direction of calculating the angles of like launching a missile to hit the enemy or something.
Oh,
or like
really?
A robot or something. That's kind of how it feels. There is this vestiges of quotes spread over from war and from like the old ages, and I don't know why they don't teach us, like, for example, how to become Einstein, right? Like, what did Einstein do to come up with his shit? Like what did Isaac Newton do to come up with, like, we are like the whole thing, like the whole course, 90% is filled from their geniuses, right? Like expanded and experimented upon. But how do we become one of those geniuses?
And a lot of those guys were Hermetic thinkers. I mean, Newton, even Einstein,
Watch out for those words, man. Hermetic.
Well, there you go. I mean, but for me, it's very simple, which is, it is like a childlike creative view. I mean, and that's what all these guys would say, I think. And it's like, for me, there's only one thing. There's the desire of the human mind to understand itself and the universe. Right? Like, that's it.
Yeah.
But then you get, like you're saying, and this is, by the way, this is why I love online learning and why I learned so much just learning online rather than being in a university setting. Because like, I can go at the speed of my own interest and creativity. And this was why I hated, I used to be a great math student. I used to be a straight A math student. And then, halfway through high school, I just decided that, it was, I didn't like it. And then I started getting D's, and it's my fault, right? But, I was always frustrated that I couldn't go at my own pace. That was the thing that always frustrated me about traditional education. It's like, I want the assignment to be done when I figure out how to do it. Not when I wait 3 weeks for the test. I want to figure out how this works and then go to the next thing. Like, that's how you would think that learning would work. Otherwise, you're just sitting there waiting for a bell, and it destroys your natural creativity. And so I'm kind of getting off track here, but it is the university system. It's kind of scary what you're talking about, calculus. I mean, it's like we're really in a pickle, because particularly with magic, because obviously it's never going to be taken seriously at the university level. But on the other hand, the universities I would like to be able to say, well, you know what? Let's just leave the topic of learning and the quest for knowledge to academics. But the unfortunate reality is, like, well, everything's for sale in this world. And particularly academics. I mean, it's like, you look at who funds universities, it's like defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, it's like, and you wonder why there's no counter studies to think.
Yeah.
So
we're not like, we don't really like the study of fear or the study of like deep emotions, shit like that. And on the point of like learning things, I told the professor straight away, like how can it be that, like, for example, I want to get an intuition for this like formula, our law, whatever, and we are already like 3 chapters ahead, because like there is this space that everybody has to keep up and learn everything and learn, like push it into your brain, and then like people like perfect parrots, they can like perfectly repeat what they learned, but there is no intuition behind it.
Absolutely.
And I talked to a professor, and there is this grant, and this grant this grant from government, right? It gives money to and it gives this obligation of you have to give this and this and this lecture to these students, because there is a projection apparently for 5 to 10 years of what the market will need. And what does the market need? Like AI, people like to feed the monster, right? 666. But
yeah,
Pfizer people that like really like are good at writing, repeating the same equations, which are like not true for 80 years, but good approximations of reality. I'm literally like talking about like the equation of Einstein, right? They're like true, they're pretty good, but they're not there yet. It's just so sad, man. Like it's a sad reality, but like, yeah, I suppose that's why magic is the only thing that really like lights things up.
Yeah,
like,
same.
All these things. It's really
same for me. I mean, well, it's kind of like, I think the unfortunate reality is that in high school, certainly in America, the high school and university experience actually do teach you a lot. They are very good at teaching you what they are actually trying to teach you, which is how to play the game and how to bullshit and say the right thing to the right person at the right time, and watch your back, and like screw other people over when necessary and things like this. So they're actually very good at creating white collar middle managers, but they're so in a sense you kind of have to like do a Gestalt read of it, where it's like, well, the result is what it's trying to do. So it is working. It's just it's not doing what it's what it's telling you it's doing, right? So it's deceptive. It's creating the society that they want to create. Yes. But under the guise of knowledge. So, and I think, but this has been the frustration of people for hundreds of years. I mean, you can even look at, obviously John Dee, or you can look at, even in another context, like the religious context, like you look at Martin Luther, right? As somebody with just like ultimate frustration for like, why aren't you actually doing the thing you're supposed to be doing? But for me, from a pedagogical standpoint, ideally, the best thing that education should do is teach you how to learn on your own. Like, that's it, right? It should not teach you what you're supposed to think. It should not teach you how to do politics. It should teach you how to teach yourself. And this is not me coming up with it. I mean, this is kind of the standard, definition of what education should truly be.
Exactly.
We don't get that from the educational system anymore, unfortunately. For me, magic did teach me how to learn, right? Just studying this stuff taught me how to see, particularly Kabbalah, see things from all these different perspectives and have the courage to explore something that other people don't believe is there or think is bad. So it also gives you all these moral and ethical lessons of pursuing something for its own sake when nobody else around you believes in you. That's a really powerful lesson. So, I don't know. I'm just excited to be talking about this. So, but yeah, no. Please keep working on that and write it down and share it. So,
sure.
Sounds very interesting.